Today is December 14, 2016, and it is 11:05 a.m. This is Lichana Spraker, representing the City of Savannah's Research Library and Municipal Archives. I'm interviewing Wilmotine Ellis for the City of Savannah's Carver Village History Roundup Days project. We are conducting this interview at the historic Carver Village Community Center, and today we'll be discussing the history of the Carver Village neighborhood and the surrounding community. Thank you for joining us. So first I want to get you to start by telling us your full name.
Okay, my full name is Wilmotine Brisbane Ellis.
Okay. Brisbane is your maiden name?
Brisbane is my maiden name.
Okay. And you're married to Reverend
Chester Ellis. Okay.
And where were you born?
I was born right here in the city of Savannah, and the first place that I came home from the hospital was in Carver Village, and the section that I was in was called the Waterworks because I'm on the other side of Gwinnett Street. And yes, so now the whole area is Carver Village, but it was called the Waterworks. And I'm presently on the same property that I've been all of my life.
So that's where your parents were living?
That's where yes. Okay.
And what were your parents' names?
Well, my mom was Evelitha Hankerson Brisbane. And my father was not with us at the time. He was in Atlanta. So I was actually raised by her and my grandmother and my grandfather. Yes.
Okay. Do you mind telling us your birth date?
My birthday is November 9th, 1951.
So Carver Village, the historic village, had already been built.
Yes, well, they had already begun. And so there were houses here, and there were also vacant lots that were here also. But I can remember, because I had friends who, we were allowed to cross Gwinnett Street, the big long street, and I had friends who lived over on this side. And all of us went to what was Springfield Terrace, and then turned to Pearl Smith. Everybody in this area went to the same school.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about Springfield Terrace Elementary School.
Okay. When I got there in first grade, which was 1957, at the age of 5, because I just got in under the birthday, I think we could go if your birthday was before November 30th during that time, you could start first grade. And we got there, and I can remember our principal, Ms. Sadie L. Cartledge, coming in to say she had a surprise for us and that the school's name was going to be changed. And I can still, picture her coming in on that day. I was in Ms. Rita Dunmore. That was my first grade teacher. And I was in her class. So I can always remember Ms. Cartledge every morning going class by class, going from the building that's still there now, the very first building that I think that was built in 1926. She started from there. All the big kids were up there, the ones who were in 7th grade. I can remember that. Well, the 6th and 7th graders were up there. But the little middle section that they've torn down now, we had from 1st through 5th grade, and those are the only 2 buildings there. But I remember, the nurse's office, the principal's office, as well as the cafeteria, all in that middle section. But after the school's name was changed, I was there from first grade all the way through 6th grade. They moved the 7th grade sometime, it had to have been in the 60s, because I can remember it only going to 6th grade after a while. And after we got out of 6th grade, they had built Scott Junior High, and that's where we went for 7th grade. So 7th, 8th, and 9th, that's when we transferred.
And where'd you go to high school?
Tompkins.
Tompkins.
And at that time, up until 1971, everybody in this area, you know, went to either Scott, Tompkins Junior High, and everybody went to Tompkins High School.
As a child, where did you play or what did you do for fun?
Okay, most of the time we played in the neighborhood, right out in the street or in our yards, because just about everybody had a pretty big yard. And this was prior to them building the playground that's now on Bowden Street. That one was built before the one that's right across the street here now.
That's called Kennedy Park?
This is Kennedy Park, yes, and the other one was, in fact, I don't even remember a name for it. I just remember when they got that one built, but I was further down on this end, so that was a pretty long way, you know, to walk. So we mostly was right in the neighborhood. You go to your friends and you play in the yard. I can remember the guys playing half rubber in the street, right in the middle of the street, and jackstones. Those were the things that we would sit on the porch and play. Checkers, regular checkers, and then the Chinese checkers.
What are jackstones like jacks?
Yes,
and
jacks,
the ball?
and with the ball. And most of the time now they're plastic. They were metal then, and we'd be there just about all day doing that. And just about the big ones and the little ones, everybody was kind of together. My grandmother used to just keep everybody's child. So I was an only child. But I had a whole lot of neighborhood sisters and brothers on those streets. So.
Go back to the community of Waterworks and talk a little bit about what area would be considered Waterworks.
Okay, my directions are terrible. Whatever this side of Gwinnett Street is.
So east or west of Gwinnett?
East of Gwinnett. Okay, because that's the river that way, right? Okay, so that side. And all of those streets from my street was called Butler Street at the time, and then in the early 60s it changed to Barton Street, which is what it is now. So there were Barton.
I should say north of Gwinnett.
North
and
east of Stiles
Yes.
and north of Gwinnett, okay. But Barton, Chapman, Nelson, those streets, and then going down to Magazine, and then Pitt Street, and all of those streets that were over that way, they were called the Waterworks. And then I never knew why. But now that I'm looking at it, the big historic building that's there where the city lot is, see, that was there, and all of those streets were there before all of this side was built. So that's what they were.
Yeah, that red brick building was the Waterworks.
That's right.
What other neighborhood names did you hear growing up in this area? Do you remember any other names?
If you go further down, Magazine Avenue was called Mexico. They used to call it a little section back there, Little Mexico.
Do you know why?
And that I don't know why now. And I do remember a couple of children who were back there, who were coming to Pearl Smith. Also off of Louisville Road, those streets that are, you know, when you turn off of Stiles onto Louisville Road, Brickyard, and I think you could probably find that. There was a street I remember named Brickyard Street, but there were kids there, and they had to walk from that area all the way down Stiles Avenue to Pearl Smith.
Were there any really important leaders in the area that you'd like to talk about?
Okay, on one of the sheets that I gave you when they did the sponsors for the dedication, you'll find quite a few names that are there. I can remember there were a few of our teachers that lived in this area, in the Flatland Village area, which is straight down this street. That used to be called Flatland Village. And, but they built a different style of house, different style of houses back there than it was in the smaller Carver Village homes. And some of our teachers actually lived out here. So it was very little that you could do wrong because the teachers were around the corner and they could always stop by your house if, something had gone wrong. But that was a plus for us because we were able to see people who taught us and who were doing well and who encouraged us to do well. I can also remember the corner stores because even I think there are one or two now, but there was the Gibbs who were on the corner of Bowden and Gwinnett. There was the Cooks family. All of them had the little corner stores because we had no large, grocery stores in this area. You had to go up to West Ward Street at the time, which is MLK now. That was the closest, market or supermarket or whatever. But there were the Gibbs and the Cooks and Irvin's, and all of them owned stores. Later in the 60s, there was a Washington's market. And I can remember him cutting the meats. He was a butcher. And that he would have fresh meats and all of that. And that was right around the corner from me. So all I had to do, my mom would give me a little note and say, this is what I want. And then I would go right around the corner and get what we wanted. And it was freshly, you cut it and wrap it up. And all of these were businessmen. And so we got a chance to see them. We also had a fish market out here. Right around the curve, it was on Gwinnett. So it was near the Allen Avenue before you would get to the school, which was, at one time it was Johnson Street, but now it's Hastings. So we had the fish market was there, and then right at the corner where the school was, there was another store called Kemper's. A lot of times we got in trouble trying to live there and spending our nickels on butternut candy bars. But it was sitting right there. So there were several, businesses and people that we looked up to because, they were making money, and then they helped us out because they allowed people to get food, and then once they got their monies, whenever they got paid, then they would go and pay them. And I can remember that happening, which was something that I guess went on into a lot of small neighborhoods. But there was a lot of trust going on. And so they would allow you to do that. Mm-hmm. So those are some, and the other would have been like ministers.
That was my next question.
Lived in the area, and everybody knew. Now, we have quite a few now. I don't know them all by name, but there were several. In fact, now the church that's on Bowden Street called Goodwill Baptist Church, that was where 3 ladies from the village used to come by and just pick us up. And we walked, I can remember walking from my house to Bowden Street with these 3 ladies. There was Miss Wilma Wallace, Miss, Golden, and then there was one other lady Miss Griffin. And the 3 of them actually had kindergarten for us. So they would pick us up and take us to that church. And I can still remember, us sitting in there. That was our kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And then there's the other building that's right on the corner of Allen. There's a 2-story building. From there, that's where we went for kindergarten also. But those were the places that those who knew the most or who were educated, even if they had just finished high school, those were the people that we depended on because, it wasn't the state kindergarten, no mandate for going to kindergarten at age whatever. So they took us and our parents paid them. And that's what we did. So evidently it worked because I ended up with a master's degree and ended up teaching for 1 year. So those were my humble beginnings.
That's a very tight-knit community that
Yes.
supported itself.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever leave Carver Village and come back? Never left.
Mm-hmm.
So why did you never leave?
Because in 1949, that was when my mom purchased the lot where I'm still now. And I just, rather than leave, in fact, she was with me up until 94. And so we already had a place. And so all I had to do was expand upon what I had. And so I think I am the only child who grew up on that street who's still there. I really think so. There were others who came, but I was born and, started out right there, and I'm still there. So I guess all of the sentimental values and as well as everything was much higher, so why give up what you have and, just stay there and build on it, and that's what I did.
Do you have any particularly favorite memories of the neighborhood?
I kind of remember really just getting out there in the street before the street was even paved, being out there with all the children. We would, the grown-ups made sure you got to school, made sure that when you came home, you were doing what you had to do, and just playing with everybody. Everybody was just together. And I can remember the grown-ups sitting on the porch while we played, and once we got street lights, we would be out there in the summers playing while the street lights were on, but everybody's mom or grandmother or something were on the porch. So, we were just there. They were the neighborhood watch, and that's the way it went. And many of the things that we're hearing about now that's going on, it just wasn't like that. I could walk from Barton Street all the way to Bowden Street, and there would be somebody that knew me or knew who I belonged to. And now it's a bit different because you don't know everybody that's out here now. But during that time, it was no problem because we walked to school every day. And we weren't afraid to walk to school. Whereas I've raised 3 daughters, everybody's in their 30s, and I drove them everywhere, you know, because that's just how things change. But I just remember the pride that everybody had in the neighborhood. Everybody made sure that things were all cleaned up, and even though the houses that they built are small, you know, compared to what other people might have been used to. I knew that there were some of my friends whose parents raised 4 and 5 children in those 2-bedroom homes, you know. But everybody was, not saying you didn't have any mischievous people or children or whatever, but everybody knew everybody. And either from school or from church or something, you know, that you had. So I just remember being able to walk through the neighborhood and know the people and just get along with most of the people. And how people used to share. That sharing and caring went along, you know, a whole lot. I remember my grandmother giving birthday parties for the kids on the street, especially those who had a lot of children. She remembered everybody's birthday. And she only had a 3rd grade education herself. But she remembered everybody's birthday. So when they had them, she gave them the birthday parties. And sometimes it'd be right out in the yard, but she'd have all of her little goodies fixed for them. So those are some
Big family.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, anything else that you want to share about Carver Village?
I think that's about it. I guess it's just when people look at, you know, where you are.
Can't get me choked out.
Yeah.
It's got a good story, and the family aspect of it is very nice. So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I think we really appreciate you sharing your memories.
Yeah.
And it's nice to hear too about the story of children in the neighborhood.
Yes.
So I think that's really, really nice part. So I want to thank you for that.